about God's people. So the book of Esther does not, for me, if I'm going to judge the literary works of the book of Esther, I believe that this is not a romantic story, but a story that is nationalist in nature. And at the same time, it tells us about how God delivers his people in a very unexpected way. Some people, the book of Esther is a disputed one because it is odd. No mention of God ever in the book of Esther. But why? If we are going to look into that, even though God is not mentioned, but you see God is at work. God works. And sometimes in our lives, if we found ourselves that God is silent in our lives, that we could not see him like moving, but actually he's there. I can compare him to a star. You will only see the stars when it is dark. Sometimes during the sunny part of our lives, we could not, we could not see God, but he is working there. He's working. So first is Mordecai. Mordecai, the cousin of Esther. And when Esther became orphan, he adopted Esther like as a daughter. And during the time, God's people is under the rule of Medo-Persia, the Persian, under King Ahasuerus or Artaxerxes in the Bible. So what happened is that, after the Babylonian Empire, some people went home to the land of Israel, but these people chose to stay in the land of it's Babylon. So Medo-Persia took over, so they remained in the land. They did not go home. And our lesson, before I forget, because this is a very interesting story, that God uses ordinary people. God uses the laity, the laymen. It's not only the people in power, it's not only the people in position of our church that will really do the works, but the ordinary people, just like you and me, except Pastor Manalo. Yeah, the ordinary people. God uses ordinary people. That's why our light should be shining with whatever sphere of influence we are. So that, brighten the corner where we are. Yeah, brighten the corner where we are. So that's why our church should be celebrating what we call the Festival of the Laity. We have that in the Philippines, where it is a festival for the lay workers, lay people. They don't have any position, in the conference or in the mission, but these are lay workers who are very much willing to give their time and money for evangelism and for personal ministry. And if you are going to look at the ministry of these people, they are bringing more and more to the church. They have more baptism. Yeah, actually, these what we call planting season. These are the ones that planted the seeds. And then when the pastor came or our evangelistic preacher came, that was the harvesting season. They will harvest, but actually this is the work of these lay workers. So just like Mordecai and Esther, they are ordinary people. However, Esther became queen. So let's put a little bit of a glimpse on this wonderful story. So as I was telling a while ago, so Mordecai adopted Queen Esther, his niece, to be his daughter. And during those time, the Queen Vashti was deposed because of what she did to, but actually, being a feminist myself, I guess she did the right thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because according to the Bible, King Artaxerxes Ahasuerus was so drunk that he commanded the queen to come to the banquet naked, bearing only the royal crown. That was according to the Bible commentators. So she said no. Sometimes women have to say no.
Of course.
Because that's very unprincipled. Me with 1,000 of your lords, with 1,000 of your subject, I am going there naked. Then she was deposed. Okay? And during those time, King Ahasuerus was so drunk. That's why no drinking. That's why I appeal to the Adventist homes. Sometimes when I visit Adventist homes, I see a very proud wine in there. I don't know why. Very proud. We're not drinking it. It's a display. And they are very proud in there. Okay. So King Ahasuerus was so drunk that he made that command. And so, we know the story. So Queen Vashti was deposed. Then they searched for young maidens to become the next queen. And Esther was chosen to be queen of the empire. So do you think Esther is happy? Esther was happy? I don't think that was a very happy one. So those people wanted to be on top. This is a different context. There are people who wanted to be on top. There are people who wanted to be the best. But it's very lonely on top. That's what I'm telling you. Because Queen Esther, there is a law that you cannot come to your husband's chamber, to the king's chamber, without being invited. How about if you were not invited for a year because the king had a harem of women? So what a sad life, right? What a sad life. You are sleeping without your husband with you. You are waiting against hope. Oh, when will he invite me? Because if you come uninvited and the king got displeased about you, then you will be executed. See, that's why now, okay. So I'm just giving some, but let's look at the antagonist of the story. So Haman, according to the Bible, he was an Agagite. And Agagite is like a term used for the king of the Amalekites. Remember that during the time of Moses, these Amalekites, while they were fleeing from the Egyptian, they came and attacked them while they were crossing the Red Sea. That's why the Lord said, you annihilate them, you kill them all. And during the time of Esther, at first, I thought that was a very brutal law. But remember that during that time, it was a theocratic law. God is the direct commander of his people. So when God said, you do it, you don't ask question that, oh, that's very bad, that's very brutal. Because you will see what happened here in the book of Esther, that Haman was an Agagite and he cherished this hatred against the Jewish. He wanted to kill them all. And the plot thickens because he got the interest of the king. The king was so pleased with him that he put Haman in a very high position, that he even asked the people of the land to give to give honor. To give homage to Haman. Thank you for the words. So, and then Mordecai, who was a guard in the king's gate, he would not bow down to Haman. And so Haman became so displeased. And who is this man? Oh, a Jewish. Now I am going to execute my plan. I am going to kill them all. Because I believe that there is the animosity. He wanted revenge. That's why revenge is not a very good thing to plant in our hearts. If we got hurt by someone, we should not plant revenge. Because it will eat us. It will make us unhappy. It will destroy the relationship, and it will destroy even our own selves. Revenge is not a very good. It's a very, very negative feelings that we are going to cherish in our hearts. So, okay, so the plot is that, but then, so he made the law. He told the king, there was a certain people here living in your land, and they have different sets of belief. So now let us going to destroy them. So now that the law was enacted, Mordecai ran to Esther. Okay, Esther, you are here for such a time as this. At first, Esther told him, during that time, Mordecai was fasting and on sackcloth. So Esther said, remember that I was not being called yet. And if I come to the king without an invitation, I could have been, I could die. But Mordecai said to her, you are not going to escape. Your father's house will die, but you will die anyway if you are not going to act right now. You are here for a purpose. And so, my dear friends, we are here for a purpose. Even though we are ordinary people, God did not put us here just for display. So each one of us have our task went to the king bearing his royal garment, and the king was so pleased that he pointed to Esther the scepter, and then Esther touched the tip of the scepter. And we know what happened. We don't know to go. We don't need to go to the details. That Esther first asked for a banquet with the king only, and then the second one with Haman. And then there's another instance that when the king could not sleep, he asked for his attendant to bring him the book of remembrance about those people who did something good for the kingdom. And they found out that Mordecai prevented a plot against the king, and he was not honored. And read the whole story, and you will find that this story is so good. Yeah. Yeah, this story is so good that Mordecai was honored. Mordecai was honored, and then that's the start of Haman's downfall. Okay, so now what are we gonna what can we get from this wonderful story? I believe that first and foremost, even though the calamity is not yet happening, the Lord already provided a solution. Before the problem comes, the Lord provided a solution. Remember that before the command to kill the Jews happened, Esther became queen. See how God works in behalf of his people. And we are not talking here about the Jewish only, but for the people of God, which is us. I believe it's us. So I know to myself that I will never be afraid to trust this God. Billy Graham said, do not be afraid to entrust your future to God, because he has been there. He knows the future. God knows the future, and he shaped the future. And of course, another one is that each one of us have a task to perform, have a task to do in God's work, maybe for such a time as this. And the miracle of Purim, the celebration that is being observed in Israel, this is to commemorate the God's people's deliverance, because Queen Esther asked Ahasuerus to make another law to counteract that law to kill the Jews, that during those time of the annihilation of the Jews, they are going to defend themselves. And many people became so scared. The Jews became so great in the kingdom, and many people were able to get converted. Even the non-Jews, they chose to become Jewish. So, my dear friends, this is an interesting story, that even though there, because in some countries, according to the lesson, they are not, you cannot practice your religion openly. You cannot practice your belief openly, because of the government is trying to for you not to do it, or it's forbidden. But there are people in different lands, just like Mordecai and Esther, that they do the work silently, but the impact is great. Okay, so I believe that 10:01.
Yeah, because we started early.
Okay.
So we have lots of things to talk about.
Okay.
Everyone can talk.
Okay, so let's start now. Okay, let's start now.
I was looking at Alan when you said women have to say no, and was busy looking.
I never said no. I always said yes.
Okay.
Because she's not Queen.
So
She's not Queen Basti.
When I say I want to go shopping, honey, yes.
I think Queen Basta, is like we don't mention her very much, as a important part of this episode, but looking at it,
Because
she was a woman of principle, That's why I think she's as important as Mordecai. I think God used her to.
King Artaxerxes seemed to have regretted what he did. Yeah. That's why he became sad, because that's the problem. He was drunk.
Yeah.
And so he realized when he became sober, what have I done? But anyway, I think we have to focus on God's mission as far as the story of Esther is concerned. that many times we think that we think the traditional way of evangelism, have a public, in a plaza and preach so that people can come and listen to the message. That's what we think as fulfilling God's mission, moving to places and be very open about our belief. But I think we should really remember that when, like in MENA, the Middle East North Africa Union, they did really they don't they send these Waldenses, the students who would be attending schools there, and they would not really tell them that they're Christians because otherwise they will be beheaded. So sometimes we think that we should always, it's bad if you don't tell them that you are an Adventist. Yeah. Well, of course, if you are a Christian in a Christian country, you should be able to show that you are a Seventh-day Adventist. But if you are in North Africa, I tell you, the Muslims, and they just didn't want to be associated with Christians. And so that this kind of, we call it covert method of evangelism, okay? Doing things as if you're there as an ordinary person, you're joining the community. It's just like what we call covert research, where you don't identify yourself. And I think in those places, we really need to do that. And that's what happened to Esther when she first, but when opportunity comes that you can tell who you are, and God has proper timing, and so we just have to depend on.
What matters most is that we must have the integrity. When I first came here to America, things have become so, our country is very conservative, right? But when I came here, wow. It's like the chains have been, sorry. It's like before
in the Philippines, I'm not even wearing lipstick.
My dad, one time I was going to preach, so I put a little bit. My dad came to the pulpit and wiped my I was preaching and I was crying. But here, no one.
So you are more beautiful now.
Of course. Yeah. No one say no. And then you are not judged according to your dress, to the length of your skirt. But what matters most is that we need to keep our integrity. It doesn't mean that, I'm here in America, no one judge me. I am free to wear whatever I want, because it's not really a light shining in the darkness. Right, Pastor Manalo?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Because sometimes we imagine that there were active animosity or hostility going on between the Persians and the Israelites or the Jews. That's not true.
During the time, yes.
Because you remember, Daniel seemed to have prepared the way for Esther and Mordecai. Because Daniel was chosen by the Darius to be his #1 man. So as far as the Jews were concerned, especially those who have not gone back to Palestine or to Judah, they did not undergo persecutions by the Persians. So the act of Haman was an exception rather than the rule. That's why if you look at the story, the writer emphasized Haman had a guy. He was not a Persian.
He was.
He was. And there is a very interesting legend that during the time when Saul was supposed to annihilate the Amalekites, whether this is true or not, historically or not, there's no way of verifying it. There was a pregnant woman who escaped. And that pregnant woman gave birth to an Amalekite.
Oh,
And through the escaping, came out
the Amalekites.
the Amalekites. So, kung minsan, sometimes we imagine that there was active hostility between the Persians and the Jews, but that is not true. It's not. You don't see.
I never mentioned pastor. I said.
No. Kasi sometimes we make a parallel between the experience of the Jews and those countries that are persecuting Christians. That is not borne by history. And if you look at the plot, the story, the unfolding of the story, Esther and Mordecai were compelled to show their honor only when their lives were threatened.
Yes.
It's more powerful if you look at the unfolding of the story. So that
Instead of hiding themselves, they open up.
So when the decree was promulgated and
Family circle.
Mordecai learned about it, what was his reaction? Doon mo lang, it is only there where you see this character now approaching, as it were, their God. The story is silent before that. And who was the instrument that he used, or you may say God used? Esther.
Mhm.
So the plot is very beautiful. So that when we make parallels, we have to be very careful because kagaya ng binanggit
Yeah, I parallel it to in
sa
Mayana or something.
Africa, that's not comparable.
Uh-huh.
That's not comparable. So here is a fellow at Haman, whom Satan tried to use as an instrument to annihilate the Jews, to prevent although there were already 50,000 na yung pumunta sumama kay Zerubbabel sa first batch. But it's really the intention of Satan to destroy the Jews, to prevent the birth of the coming of the Messiah. But Satan has been thwarted every time he attempted that. So, sa atin, at saka I'm not contradicting you, pero when we say ordinary people, Mordecai was never an ordinary person in the story. He was a gatekeeper.
Of course, Esther was a queen.
A gatekeeper was holding a very, very important
Position. Oh.
position.
Consul.
Siya yung ano kung sino yung papasok dun sa kaya nga we was able to
hear.
eavesdrop, when the two fellows were plotting to assassinate. So not just anybody, can be positioned in that very, very sensitive location. And then of course, Queen Esther became a queen. So ang tingin ko dito is I agree with you that each has a specific task. And when the time calls for us to do that task, then we are supposed to live. And the preparation, as you said, is to maintain life integrity. So what lessons could we draw from this ancient story
Mhm.
that we can, we can apply in a situation when we are called to open up and show our true color. I think that is significant. Yeah. Parang yun ang significant na
So
But
Esther's famous words, if I perish, I perish. Pastor.
Was it not the same king who signed the decree to rebuild Jerusalem? Xerxes?
iba yun.
Iba yun?
I may add something to it. Well, you asked about the lesson. For me, the big problem, if I'm in Saudi Arabia or in Afghanistan, I'm not going to tell. I'm going to announce that I am a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. You better do this and that and that. We have to be discreet, and when the time comes for us to reveal,
Yeah.
they ask, that's the time when we have to tell them. Also, I would like to mention that Esther, of all the books in the Bible, there's no mention of the word God in there.
Yeah.
And here it's been canonized, you see, because of this very important story on mission that you and I had. It's really interesting also, and I was in a plane from Haiti when I met a guy, and he's the head of missiology here in Baptist University here in Riverside. He told me that, did you know that if you go to Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of Filipino nannies in there teaching the children of the family, about Christianity. In fact, it's very, very ordinary. If you pass by, you hear the children singing, Jesus loves me, this I know.
Yeah.
So they're just nannies, and yet they are spreading Christianity in their own way, in all those countries. Yeah. So we'll never know the effect. Yeah, we'll never know the effect. But we have to be discreet and not be persecuted. So what good are we if we're already killed? So,
Even the little girl that was Naaman's, what's the
May, they don't make,
the little girl?
Yeah.
That was the one who directed Naaman to go and obey so that he would give him.
God communicates both through his words and his actions. And I think in this particular story,
His action.
we may not hear his word. There is no thus said. But if you follow the movements, the transitions, especially the twists and turns of the story, you could just see the action of that.
very subtle.
Yeah, very subtle. And there is a very strong suggestion of the consciousness of the presence of God in the story, especially when Esther pleaded for fasting, and the Jews fast and prayer. The Jews, when they fast, that is not only an expression of sorrow, but it is an expression of a wholehearted way of approaching God for special intervention. So when when you read again that you don't, I don't hear the word of God. I see God acting.
Yeah.
And what is very encouraging to me as a sinner is that when God's people approach him and plead with him to take action, he does not only listen, but he acts.
Mhm.
Even if he acts inaudibly. So God communicates both audibly and in silence. You see the footprints.
Any more? Yeah. Kuya.
I like the idea of God using.
Yeah, he is the father of, by the way, he's the father of Bojo, Lehauko, our conductor. So welcome to Mr. Ramon Lehauko Senior. He's the senior. He was our colleague, of course, for many years while Pastor Manalo and I were at AUP. Okay, welcome po.
I like the idea that God uses ordinary people, and I believe, although that Mordecai was appointed as the gatekeeper and also Esther as queen, before all those things,
They were
they were
ordinary.
ordinary. And then God is doing something to ordinary people, equipping them and putting them in a position of influence so that they can work with God.
Amen.
So I wish I could have been,
Queen.
I could have become, no, I wanted to be a politician
Okay.
when I was younger. Yeah, I became the because really, God can use them to advance His kingdom.
You can,
God is using.
you could have been a good politician. because
Okay.
May I just say something about Esther? There's nothing ordinary with Esther.
She's very beautiful. Mhm.
That's why she was chosen that
Yeah.
queen because
She won the heart of the
yeah,
king.
she had no match in the kingdom.
Yung mga magaganda rin dyan, J.
Ito si Mordecai. But Mordecai, if you look at him, as he is introduced in the story, he's already a leader.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, I don't know what is really encapsulated or embraced or included in the word ordinary. But as you remember, we are wonderfully and
Yeah.
fearfully made.
And we're a priest, chosen
But like
generation, holy.
Mr. Lehalco says that before that, Esther was just an orphan. Both of her parents died, and she was just
And
Nothing was
orphan,
taken care
ordinary.
of.
and orphan is in Israel is in a very uncompromising situation.
But of course, because she was
Okay,
beautiful.
may I quote to you a Bible? When the parents of Moses saw that their child was so beautiful, they saw something
In him.
extraordinary with Moses, even at birth. So whether God was the one who impressed
Yeah, maybe yes.
Jacob and Amram, we cannot verify that. Pero nakita mo yun. It is in the Bible. Na,
Yeah, so even at a young age, you are already, I mean, people can already see who you will become. Or
Tsaka yung this distinction between the laity and the clergy, this is an invention of the Roman Catholic Church.
Oh.
That is not biblical. Because the word laos in the Bible includes both the apostles
In the church.
and
member?
the church members.
Oh.
Because laos means people. People. So there is no distinction between the clergy and the laity in the Bible. That was a I think that was a 3rd century innovation of the Roman Catholic Church. What the Bible presents to us is we are all called by God.
Mm-hmm.
But also this God who has called us, in his own will and his discretion, he has distributed spiritual gifts. And it is those spiritual gifts that determine what ministry or service you are going to do in the body of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Kagaya ni Kamochi, marunong sa
Yes,
music,
music.
marunong magturo. That's his ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Si Beth, mahusay magturo. So, mahusay sa videos. Si Wandering Filipino, who is very good in science. So, he is what? So, God is the one who called us, and he is the one who equips us. And every spiritual gift is special.
Yeah, we are special.
And what does Paul say? There are many gifts, but there is only one Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And these spiritual gifts are given not for the sake of the recipients of these gifts, but for the sake of the body of Christ. So kung ako, for example, I also have a gift in teaching
Yeah.
and speaking, but no music. I've been asking for 75 years, 6 years, and
Now still.
pero sabi ni Kojo, pag solohin daw niya ako, pagbalik nila dito.
Yeah.
Nakatakot yan.
So what I'm just saying is, none of us in this table is
It's
ordinary.
ordinary.
So walang
Praise the Lord.
ordinary ko, ordinary
We
singer.
are all called by God. No? In the first place, we were all created by Him.
In his own image.
And
we are
then He
special.
called us. And those whom He calls, He equips.
Yes.
And how does He equip? Through the spiritual gifts. Remember, we are not the ones who determine what spiritual gifts we have.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says the Holy Spirit distributes as he wills.
Yes, oh, yes.
So kung ano yung binigay kay Ben, I should not envy him. Because God has also given to me. What is important is we use these gifts to edify, to encourage, to build up each other, not to put each other down.
So we may look at, in human viewpoint, we look at ourselves as ordinary people. How can we, when we are sons and daughters? of God,
Yeah, that's right.
It's so extraordinary.
We have a big God.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
following your statement, as you were given the talent, not for you, but for other people, for to bless other people. That means us a great responsibility when we don't use our talents. Because we are depriving people of what God had intended for them to receive from you.
That's why, for example, in my case, I believe that the Lord has given me the gift of teaching. So I don't stop learning.
Mhm.
I keep on learning. Because if I stop learning, what do I impart?
Yeah, we will have Alzheimer's, Pastor.
And the beauty of
Not yet.
the beauty of learning the Bible is it is always fresh. You read it yesterday, you learn something. You read it today, it's fresh.
That's why God made the right decision to put you as
The
Preview.
teaching
the previewer,
pastor.
of the lesson.
He is our, by the way, Pastor Manalo is our Sabbath school, adult Sabbath school teaching pastor.
And you're doing good. Well, coming from you, Muscala.
So, so Rolly has also lots of spiritual gifts. And so your singing and your teaching, yes. So now, so for God's mission.
Kaya yung ano natin is whatever the Lord has equipped us to minister, it is there where we minister. Hindi mo aagawan mo yung iba. O you compete,
Yes, yes.
you envy. That's not.
That's when you put others down.
Sabi nga ni Paul sa 1 Corinthians, yung, di ba, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 12 that those that appear to be least significant, they are the ones that are greatly honored. Tingnan mo yung mga hindi nakikita sa katawan natin. Nakatago sila, yung puso mo, yung liver mo. Hindi sila nakalabas. Pero sila yung nag-determine kung mabubuhay ka o hindi. So there are silent operators in the church that only heaven will reveal what impact was their contribution or were their contributions in the building of the kingdom of God.
Like what Pastor Manal said, that the chances for us to be able to witness to kings or presidents is as slim as winning a lottery, but the lesson here is we might not be witnessing to higher us, but whenever there's a chance for us to witness to our level, then we have to take the opportunity to
And
witness.
that's true. And of course, as a woman, the story of Esther is really a great inspiration, of course, to all of us, because many times, we think that because the people, the frontliners, as far as mission is concerned, it usually would be the men, and that was actually the reason why when I wanted to be, I was studying theology, and I wanted to be a pastor. That was actually my first dream. I wanted to be a pastor. But then some of the pastors told me, oh, the frontline workers in preaching the gospel are men, and you will just be disappointed if you'll be treated like a second class citizen in the mission work. Yeah, maybe because they were thinking I won't be ordained. And I think I would be one of those who would really be very, you wanted to be there and yet you cannot be there. But it's not really being a pastor, I realize it's not God also. I think he might have used those people who discouraged me to continue with my theology course. Because maybe I believe that God had a different plan. He wanted me to be in the classroom, teach math, and preach the gospel through mathematics, something like that. Yeah, but one thing about Esther is that really he used this woman to be his instrument to deliver her people. And so as women, we just have to allow ourselves to make ourselves available, so that for whatever it is that God would will to use us, then we can do what he wants us to do. So whether we're women, whether we're not that highly educated or anything like that, God uses people, and whenever we are in his hand, we'll be able to do great job, not for our own, but for him.
Looking back now, don't you wish you did not listen to those people who discourage you from taking?
No, I actually realized they did the right thing. Yeah, because like when of course I keep telling Pastor Digdigan was the one who really told me better. It was sad because during the time when he told me that, I just came from an evangelistic effort. We had a speaker, but me and my cousin were the ones doing Bible studies. And we were successful. There were about 7 people who were baptized because of what we did. And as soon as I came back from that evangelistic effort, and I told him I'll go back to Nagaview to continue with my theology, and he was our pastor. He just told me, no. You just marry a pastor. Okay. Be a minister's wife. And so I was telling, every time we see each other, because he said he saw in me something more than, because not very many people maybe have some little understanding of mathematics, and I was one of those. So yeah, I realized, Kuya, maybe if I was not in the area of math, I would not have even gone to Africa to be a missionary there, because they won't call pastors to Africa, right? To be missionaries. And so I was called to go there because of my area of specialization. And so I realized that's really true. There are people who really they should be pastors, but there are people like my sister.
The sun is like burning my skin, but to add to that, yeah, women should not only cultivate beauty, but also brain. Because I believe that Esther is a beauty and brain.
Yes.
But with regards to your experience, those experiences were so fruitful and glorious. But I was so, during those times, my appearance would be, because it's weighing me down. Imagine the intense heat of the sun, me visiting people, and then I am going to different places where no one goes, and it's kind of dangerous, but no one harms me. Don't worry about that. I have some protectors, even the New People's Army are behind me whenever I walk in those terrains, but it's kind of compared to those ladies who are in a confines of a air conditioned room. You can wear makeup, it's kind of different. So they told me it will be very hard for you, you know. And even my dad too, my dad told me, anak ko, you know, I want you to be pretty.
You know, this may give us insight as it has given me. This, when we're witnessing, we are communicating. And my wife and I are preparing this one day seminar, communication,
Oh, okay.
in administration and leadership. Biblical concept of communication. You know, if you look at God, even from the beginning, you find him as one who loves and enjoys communicating. Then, according to Hebrews 1, he employed several ways, several means in various times. But finally, he chose to communicate through the Son.
Yes.
And I kept wondering, no? And John 1, chapter 1 gave me an insight, and I hope I can capture it. Maybe you can help clarify it. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same in the beginning was with God. All things were made by him. Nothing was made that was not made by him. And then the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld the glory as of the only begotten Son, full of grace and truth. It gives me the insight that the only way, even God himself, the only way that he can maximize the effect of communicating is by making himself visible. He spoke. He used proxies. But it seemed that it was not as effective as he wanted it to be. And then he decided that he would no longer use proxies. He came and so on. And then it was when he became visible that